Joining us now, America's Sheriff. We love everything about him, but we do feel sorry for him because he's a hapless Cubs fan, and he's in Milwaukee. Could be a Brewers fan, but no, he's going to go to Cubs. And their high-priced manager and Theo Epstein or whatever his name is, and they're going to have another disappointing season. But he's joining us now, and we're going to try to cheer him up. Sheriff David Clarke, America's Sheriff. Go to americasheriff.com. Sheriff Clarke, great to have you.
John, still busting my chops over the Cubs, huh?
I mean, I'm an Astro fan. I'm really excited about my team this season. So, look, when you're going to win the division and maybe get to the World Series, nobody's hurt right now. You know, it's the greatest thing about grapefruit baseball or the Cactus League, if you're a Cubs fan, is you haven't played any real games. So nothing, I mean, everything is possible, right? You're 0-0. You're waiting for that opening day. And so everybody's got a spring in their step. That's the greatest thing about spring training baseball is come April 1st, everybody starts even. And we go from there.
That's fun, isn't it? That's why they say hope springs eternal. Because for all the major league teams, the World Series is within reach. But we know the reality of it. Some have a better chance than others, and that would include the Cubs.
So let's get to your friend in New York, Jerry Nadler. What is up with this guy? 8,000 subpoenas he's sending out. Basically, if you worked for the president in the campaign or in his company, you're going to get a subpoena to just ask you questions like it's in search of some crime that may have been committed of which they have no evidence. Have you ever seen anything like this as a sheriff in your life?
No, I haven't. But we knew this was going to happen. You know, we talked about it before the midterms, and that was the importance of trying to turn out the vote to keep the Democrats from controlling the House of Representatives. We knew that it would be nothing but this investigation after investigation, you know, for the next 2 years. So that's what's upon us right now. But what's more disturbing to me is, you know, this all-powerful force of the federal government is being turned on private citizens. It's one thing in the political field, as you know, in the political environment, for certain things to go on. You look at it, and it's kind of politics as usual. But when this stuff gets turned on the American people, it really turns my stomach.
How does this play out, Sheriff?
Well, I think, you know, as this goes on, the American people will tire of it. There's a reason why Congress has an approval rating of about 18%. And it's for this kind of stuff, the kind of stuff that goes on in the swamp in Washington, D.C. Nothing gets done. There's a lot that needs to be done. The president still wants an infrastructure bill for our crumbling infrastructure. The Democrats don't care about that. We need that southern border sealed. We need it fixed. We need this broken and illegal immigration system fixed. But the Democrats don't care about that either. They just want to play politics. They're still trying to undo the 2016 election. They're trying to weaken the president's approval numbers. They are in search of and on a path toward impeachment. They're not hiding it at all, but over time the American people get tired of this stuff. They get tired of the politics as usual in Washington, D.C., the back and forth. But this is what you get when you get a bifurcated government. And it was one of the things that, and you know, the voters, they get to make the decision.
Right.
And they did. The Democrats did a better job of getting their people out to the polls than the Republicans, with the 40 or 45 GOP members in the House not running for re-election. You know that incumbency is a very strong thing. I think the poll I saw, or the survey, I think, or research, 95% of incumbents all across the country get reelected. So the Republicans gave up the power of incumbency, and they really didn't have a plan to replace those people. A lot of experience went out the door. And, you know, they seem to have just given up, you know, on the old adage that in the off term of a presidential general election that it goes to the opposite party. Well, you know, that might be the pattern that has developed over time, but that doesn't mean that it's a guarantee. So I think they just gave that up. But here's what we got. The next 2 years, nothing's going to get done, but it will probably come back to bite the Democrats in the rear end, because this isn't what the American people want out of their government in Washington, D.C.
I agree with you 100%. And I'm not sure that Jerry Nadler and Adam Schiff and these 8 committee chairmen that are doing all these subpoenas, I'm not sure they're looking at 2020 in a realistic way. I know they're a slave to their left-wing donor base, and this is what a lot of their activists are demanding. But you also got to be smart. Look, I'm not going to give them advice because I think this is a losing strategy. And as the president said the other day, and I've said it earlier in the week when when they started the hearings with Cohen, it's like if Pelosi led with, here are the 5 things we're going to work with the president on to help the lives of average Americans. We're going to do infrastructure. We're going to rebuild our crumbling roads and bridges and train system and expand Amtrak so it actually goes places that people want to go. And then they could say, look, the second thing is we got to get prescription drug prices down. Obamacare is here to stay. We have to fix it so we can bring down the cost in some way. We have to take a look at colleges that keep raising tuitions. I mean, if they did that, there would be a reason to reelect them in 2020. Sheriff, I've said this all week. Look, the Republicans in 2020, Sheriff, need 19 seats to flip back to them to win, to take the gavel away from Nancy Pelosi. 30 Democrats got elected in 2018, 30 in districts that Trump carried in 2016. Now, he's going to be back on the ballot in 2020, stronger than ever. I mean, they're at risk. They're not going to hold the majority of those seats. It's a matter of, do the Republicans pick up 18 or 25 of them? And so I think their strategy is just a disaster for them. But look, this is a short-term deal, I guess, right?
Yeah, and if there's a plan put forth to gain some seats by the RNC, it could be done. But here's another thing that I'm worried about. I think there's some storm clouds on the horizon in terms of the United States Senate. 21 GOP members are up for re-election, and I think there's only 10 or 11 Democrats that are up for re-election. Those numbers were in our favor in the midterms, where I think 21 Democrats were up for re-election, and so with the help of the president, they were able to increase the control of the Senate by a few seats, but that could flip as well.
Right.
And I think that's what the Democrats are going to eye in 2020, in addition to the White House, is if they can't win in the they can't beat the president and take over the White House, they can surely take over the potential to take over the United States Senate, and then they're one more step, a building block away from having complete control, and that'll be a disaster for this country. So now is the time for us, you, I, the voters, Trump supporters, to have a real sense of urgency about this thing and about what's going on, and to, stay engaged, to keep working, keep fighting, don't get discouraged, because that's what the Democrats are trying to do as well, is discourage Trump voters and then hopefully peel some off. It's not working right now. It's not going to work, but they're still going to move full steam ahead. When they start prying into people's business, private citizens, I looked at the list. I was surprised that I wasn't on it. Mm-hmm. But, I looked at some of the businesses like the NRA and private citizens. You start poking around in their business. Very distasteful. It's very anathema to what the Founding Fathers set up in terms of self-rule and getting the government to just stay out of people's lives and leave them alone.
Well, I don't think they're going to do that. Look, both of us think it's going to blow up in their face, but time will tell how this plays out. We're with America's Sheriff from Milwaukee, David Clarke. You can get more information. Go to americasheriff.com. That's americasheriff.com. Sheriff, I want to get your reaction to, I know you've spent a lot of time at the southern border. I want to get reaction to some of the numbers I got in a meeting at the White House yesterday, right? So what they're saying is more than 76,000 aliens arrived illegally at our border in February. This, of course, enough to fill up a massive stadium. So this data shows 76,000 illegal aliens apprehended at the border in February. But here's the problem. We don't know how many got in that were not apprehended. So if 76,000 got apprehended, how many came in that were not apprehended? 5 times that amount? No one knows. That's the problem. When you were there, what is the percentage do you think of those that we apprehend and those that we don't apprehend that come in?
Yeah, it's hard to say, but it's a great insight. Those are the numbers, like you said, that they can, that they know were trying or did get in illegally, and what about the ones that don't? It's projected now. I saw a figure yesterday where March could see 100,000 illegal aliens entering into the country. It's starting to pick up again, but again, you know, from Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Democrats, we get, oh, nothing to see here. There's no crisis. This is a manufactured crisis by the president. No, it's not. And as you indicated, I was there. I spent 4 or 5 days in there in 2 of the sectors in Texas, and it is a crisis. So, when you look at the amount of illegal drugs that are getting into this country, I think the figure I saw, 70,000 Americans died as a result of fentanyl and opioid addiction, opioid use. And it's coming in through our southern border. These are the things the American people want Congress to work on. But the Democrats have turned a blind eye to that thing, and they want to play politics with the president instead of giving him the resources that he needs. And I think what he asked for was very reasonable. He tried to cut a deal with the Democrats, but as you indicated, Democrats aren't interested in working with this president. I think President Trump knows that, but he still has to put his best foot forward to expose the phoniness, the phony nature of the Democrats. So these things will go on without being fixed. The border is a mess, John. I'm telling you, it's a mess. And you know me, I don't engage in hyperbole. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it takes a lot to really shock me or to get my attention when what I saw down there was unbelievable. In just a few days that I was in McAllen, Texas, I think they rounded up in 2 days 60 illegal aliens that crossed into the country. And then in Sanderson County, in the Big Bend sector, the day before I got there were 45 illegals that were rounded up. They don't have enough boots on the ground to deal with this. The president knows that. He's tried to get them more money. And so it's a combination of things that are needed. But these are the things that the Congress should be working on instead of handing out all these subpoenas, this political witch hunt to get the president and to try to peel off and destroy the people around him, the people like you and I and others that helped him get elected to discourage us from helping out in 2020. But I can tell you right now, the president can count on me. When I give somebody my word, they could take it to the bank. I'm going to help and do everything I can to get this president reelected.
Well, we have to do that, no question about it. And I'm going to be in the same position, obviously, and hopefully we can get him over the top. It's going to be, it's going to be a tough 18 months. But look, I think Bernie Sanders, I've predicted this all week on my show, Bernie Sanders is going to be the nominee. And I wouldn't take it lightly. I know a lot of people say, wow, easy victory, great in the debates. He's a socialist. The guy's got a following, and he's going to pick off a couple of these Midwestern states, perhaps, potentially, and he's going to win. Look, I don't care who the nominee is. All the blue states are going with that nominee. It could be Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, AOC. It doesn't matter. They're going to win those blue states. So it, comes down to a handful of states. I think Sanders is going to be tougher than meets the eye, but I think if he's the nominee, we do win, and that is going to have to be top priority. Hey, final question here, Sheriff Clarke. I just want to get your take on this. Did you ever think we'd be in a situation where we're actually defending capitalism when the economy is growing at 3.5% and everybody has a job? Have you? I mean, it's like, I don't know what world I'm in when I get up every day. Like, why am I defending capitalism when the economy is exploding? I mean, you do that when there's when you're in the depths of a recession or a depression, you might look at an alternative system. I mean, does this make any sense?
Not at all, and you're right. And in a very short period of time, too. But this is the result, as you know, many of your listeners know, the result of the destruction of our K-12 public education system and our university systems across the country that have turned into laboratories of liberal and socialist indoctrination. That's what's going on. So what you have is now generations of people coming up, particularly under 30, but around that age range, that were in these school systems when this was being pushed. Socialism, that it was idealistic and it was a good thing, and they actually believe this stuff because they've been duped, John. But these are the people now who are going out to the polls. These are their followers. It's like a cult. I wrote about it in my latest column at townhall.com, the cult-like psychology of progressivism. And so now they've unleashed these individuals, onto our government structure. And yeah, they support this stuff, this nonsense. They have no idea what socialism really is. They don't understand that its forebear is communism. It goes from socialism, then it goes to communism. But we're seeing some of the dictator-like behavior out of the Congress, like you said, with these, this mass subpoena request that's been put out there on the American people. But this is the fight. This is what we're up against. But I've suggested, and I put it in my piece, that one of the best ways to undo this is we have to regain control of our public K-12 education system. These are laboratories of indoctrination for liberalism, progressivism, and socialism, and they're no longer institutions of learning. But that's how the Democrats started this stuff. This started like 2-3 decades ago. This didn't start a couple of years ago. And basically, we fell asleep at the switch while our school systems were taken over by this socialist indoctrination.
Makes no sense. I want to thank Sheriff David Clarke for being with us. More information, americasheriff.com. Sheriff Clarke, a senior contributor with America First Policies. Follow him on Twitter at Sheriff Clarke, and you can read his columns, townhall.com. Hey, Sheriff, thanks for being with us.
John, it's my pleasure. Be well.